The moment you can overcome your fear of selling, sales becomes easy. Hello and welcome to Full Body Yes Sales, the podcast where we show you how to make more sales than ever in your online business in a way that feels authentic, empowering, and feels completely aligned with how you want to do business. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to the Full Body Yes Sales podcast. As we are getting into spooky season this month, as Halloween is fast approaching, I wanted to talk about something a little bit on theme there, and that is sales fears and why you might be feeling hesitant around sales, why it might be feeling a little bit scary and spooky right now. And we're going to talk about what to do with that essentially and how you can overcome that, why this is holding you back, and why this is probably the area you should be focusing on right now. Okay, so firstly, I think we have all been there of having something around sales which just feels a little bit scary. We've got a few little fears, whether that's fear of rejection, you're afraid of being really pushy, you're afraid of, selling at this price point, of asking for this much and saying this number on the sales call, whatever it is. I think it's so important that we actually talk about that firstly, because this is often the thing which holds us back. If it's not a case of we don't know how to sell necessarily, it's that we kind of know what we could do at least to sell. We usually have at least some idea of what we could do to make sales, but we don't do it because we've got a lot of fears around it and a lot of hesitation, and almost our minds get in the way and we make it bigger than it actually is. And we make it this really big, scary thing when actually, if you could just be showing up and just taking a sales action each day and just showing up for sales each day in your business, you would be so much further right now. Your income would be so much higher, and you can grow really quickly once you do start taking action around sales. As soon as I started doing this, I went from 1K months in my business to a 7K month and a 9K month straight after, literally just from showing up and taking action in sales. But so often the thing that stops us from taking action and stops us from showing up is kind of those fears that are lurking around. It's those hesitations around selling, it's feeling nervous around saying this number, whatever it is. So it's so important we actually talk about that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Now, I want you to think firstly around, is there anything coming up for you around this? Of straight away, when I think of sales, when I think of selling, is there anything coming up? Do I feel a bit nervous on, what if someone says no? Do I feel nervous about getting that rejection there? Do I feel nervous around getting on a sales call and actually, what if I can't help this person once we have started working together? What is coming up for you around there? And just keep that in mind as we're just going through this episode, and just sit with that and just see what's coming up as we're talking through the different things here. Because I think the really important thing to start by saying, obviously, is we know this is holding you back right now. We know this is kind of that self-perpetuating cycle of, if I'm, let's use the fear of rejection, because I think that's a super simple one and very, very common one. If I'm afraid of hearing no when we're having sales conversations, then actually when it comes to me wanting to sell my offer, I'm going to be kind of hesitant, right? Because I don't need the sale probably right now. I'd be okay if I didn't get that sale. But if I do go for that sale, and if I do actually have that conversation with someone, there's a chance that they could say no. There's a chance that I'm going to get rejected, and I'm going to feel really bad about that. Almost going to feel worse than I would feel better if I had got that sale. So almost we're balancing that out in terms of it's really overweighing essentially in the negative feelings there. And the risk of that just feels too high in our brains, so we don't go for it. And actually with something like that, that really holds us back from taking action with sales. Then typically we'll find that if that's our issue and it's fear of rejection, we are only going to show up for sales and we're only going to have sales conversations when it's pretty much 100% yes that someone's going to say yes. So if someone's, for example, already reached out saying, hey, I'm interested in working with you, we'll have those conversations, but we won't have the conversation when we can really see that a potential lead who has joined our masterclass said they were really struggling with something, and actually saying to them, hey, would you want to get on a call to talk about how to help you with this? We won't have those conversations because they feel a little bit too risky. They feel a little bit too gray area. There's a good risk that this person could say no and could reject us. So we'll find that we're having so many less sales conversations just as a result of that, which means that we're getting so many less sales, we're getting so much less income coming in, we're finding that income is inconsistent, and we're probably then even more so as a result of that, afraid of hearing this no, because the more times we're kind of then actually showing up and putting ourselves out there when we have done that, if we've heard a no, it's almost just reinforcing this fear of, okay, what if I do show up and I hear a no? What if that happens? I felt really bad last time. And we're almost stacking the evidence for that and really seeing that as a problem there. Now, the crazy part about this fear in particular, fear of selling and getting rejected, is actually you're going to get rejected. This isn't something that we can kind of mindset our way out of, like, no one's going to reject me, no one's going to reject me, it's all going to be great, everyone's going to say yes. that's kind of just not true. So sorry to burst the bubble there, but it's just not true. And actually, what's really helpful there is realizing that it is going to happen. I'm realizing that it's normal. I'm realizing literally if you are selling anything, if you're showing up and having sales conversations and you're hearing a no, that's a good thing because it just means that you showed up. It doesn't mean that it was bad. It doesn't mean that the offer's not good. It doesn't mean that I'm not good enough to help someone. It just means it wasn't a fit for that person. And that's totally okay. Are we going to be a fit for everyone? No. Are we even trying to be a fit for everyone? No. But actually, by just flipping the script on that and the no not being a negative thing of, oh my gosh, they rejected me, so this means this, and creating meaning around it, what if instead we can almost celebrate that as, okay, cool, I got a no. That means I showed up today. That means I had a sales conversation. That means I put myself out there. And it really just takes flipping the script for this and a lot of these other fears as well. It just takes flipping that script and kind of just looking at it through that new light to just change the intensity of this and just make it not feel so heavy for you. So it feels easier to show up and it's not trying to reduce the reality of this and pretend that it's not happening and try and just talk yourself out of it and just pretend it's not happening and not occurring there. But actually instead, just realizing that it's okay, realizing that it's normal, and actually just looking at it from a different perspective can completely shift that fear there. And this can be true of pretty much all of the fears that are probably coming into your mind right now, of actually, it's not the thing itself that's scary, it's what we're making it mean. It's the context we're putting around that. The same way, to use a very Halloween-y example, the same way, scary movies are only scary because they're happening in the dark, because this person is on their own in this haunted house, because there's some creepy noises happening that we don't know what's happening, what's going on there. We don't know where it's coming from. Actually, if you took away some of those contexts, if you just turned on the lights on full brightness, if you just added another person into that scenario, they don't feel as scary suddenly. So many things aren't the actual thing that's actually happening. It's not the getting rejected that is the scary part. It's not that I don't feel confident in this sales call or that I feel really scared when I'm saying this 5-figure price tag. It's not that in particular, which is making it feel so scary. It's what we're making it mean of what if they didn't want to work with me because of this reason? Or what if they say no? What if they then say they can't afford the price? What do I say from this? It's actually the meaning that feels scary. It's that part of what is happening around this just very tangible, logical event that is occurring. It's what's happening around that feels really scary. So instead of trying to fix the event itself, aka someone rejecting you, what if we just look at what we're making it mean of, okay, what am I making it mean that someone's rejecting me? When someone's saying no, what meaning am I placing on this? What stories am I telling myself around this? What am I telling myself this is because of this? Actually looking at those things instead and trying to, resolve those things and just lessen the weight of those things. That is how we actually fix this versus trying to stop the event from occurring itself. And the really funny thing, an ironic thing really, with a lot of these sales fears and worries and nerves around there is that actually a lot of them will be resolved through just taking action. For example, again, using fear of rejection, if you're really afraid of getting rejected and hearing no, you're probably afraid of that because you're thinking no one's going to sign up. Everyone hates the offer maybe. No one wants to work with me. Whereas actually if we were to show up and have, 10 sales conversations, even if 7 of them ended in a rejection and 7 of them said no, if you had 3 people who said, yeah, I'm ready to go, let's sign up, I want to be your client, and signed on and paid you right now, you would probably actually feel really good. You wouldn't really notice those 7 as much because you'd had the positive experiences. So actually showing up and taking that action makes such a difference there. And again, even going back to that example of saying the price point feels really scary, the more you do it, the easier it feels. The less you do it, the more it feels like a big deal because this is an event that doesn't happen every day. It's something which happens rarely. So you saying it costs 10K to work with me feels really scary because it doesn't happen that often. And what if they say no? Then I don't know when I'm going to have another sales call. If we have 10 sales calls lined up, and if we've said this 10 times in a row, it just doesn't feel as big anymore. It doesn't feel as scary. We've reduced the weight of this. So actually leaning into the action side can be so powerful for just reducing the weight of these, because they don't feel like as big of a deal when we've got a lot of sales calls, when we've got a lot of conversations. Hearing the no, it's completely fine. I've got 3 sales calls booked next week with ideal clients as well. It doesn't matter that this person in particular said no. It doesn't mean anything because I've still got 3 opportunities there that I could sign a client. And then another reason why I typically see people really struggling with some of these sales fears is that we're kind of making it about ourselves a little bit. We're making these sales conversations, these sales calls, these interactions that we're having with potential clients, really we're making it about ourselves, and we're putting a lot of the focus on us and, us saying this price point and us talking about this offer, when actually, if we can put the focus on that ideal client, on that potential client there, on the conversations that we're having with them, of how we're speaking with them, of understanding them as best as we can, of talking to them more and listening about this problem, it becomes a lot easier to have those conversations, and those fears show up a lot less because we're not trying to get them to buy from us. It feels like we're just working together with them to find a perfect solution, and we're just trying to understand where they're at, we're trying to understand what they're looking for, and we're trying to come up with a really good option that can help them with those things. It feels really simple and it feels really easy then when we're not feeling like we're trying to pitch ourselves. We're not feeling like we have to sell this specific offer. We're just getting on the phone to speak with someone, listen to where they're at, ask some questions, be inquisitive, be curious around there, and understand where they're at, and then just give them the best solution essentially that can help them with those things from our opinion. That is all we're trying to do. And actually, the more we can put the focus onto the other person on the sale, which will help you, spoiler, sign more sales calls anyway, sign more clients and book more sales calls anyway. But that will help so much more there, but also helps so much more in terms of any sales fears, because it just makes it less about you. It makes it about this other person. It's not about you trying to pitch your offer to them. It's not about you trying to convince them. It's just, okay, can I understand this person as best as possible? Can I fully listen? And then can I share from my honest opinion what I think would be really helpful for them and why I think it would be really helpful for them? It then just becomes about that person and becomes instead, okay, let's make this pitch as perfect as possible. Instead of that, we're really focused on, okay, how can I make sure that I am meeting their needs as best as possible and actually finding the perfect solution for them? And another side effect of this as well is the more you can actually understand their needs specifically, and the more specific we can get with their problem, what they're looking for, how they're struggling with this in particular, the more specific we can get with that, the more confident we tend to feel in how we can solve that problem. Because if, for example, I just said to you, if you're a fitness coach, for example, I said a very vague kind of client story. So I said, okay, this client, she's wanting to get in the best shape of her life. And I just left it there. How confident do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 that you could help this person? Probably not super confident, because that sounds like a kind of big goal. We're not really sure what that entails. There's a lot of things that go into that. But if I just said, okay, she wants to lose 5 pounds, for example, okay, I know how I could do that with her. Okay, that feels a bit more tangible now. It feels a bit more clear because we've narrowed the expectation of what we're going to be focusing on with her, essentially. So the more you can actually ask those questions and really focus on that other person, the easier it makes it feel as well, because we're actually able to understand their needs better, and we're almost narrowing the space of what we're needing to help them with, essentially. We're getting crystal clear, we're getting really hyper-focused and specific on exactly what they're looking for and exactly how we can help them. So it just naturally feels easier to help them with those things. And this in turn as well makes it really easy for you to actually just own your expertise, because you're an expert in your field. There's a reason why you're on these sales calls and why you're having these sales conversations. You're an expert in your field, especially if you're listening to something like this and you're trying to improve in those areas, right? You're an expert in your field, and actually the more we can get to that place of really clearly understanding where the ideal client is at and actually having those conversations and also increasing just your confidence in being able to help them, the more confident you can feel to actually own your expertise and to actually share about how you can help them. You can have some specific client case studies that are relevant to that, which you can share as well. And actually, the more we can get to that place of really understanding this ideal client, the easier it is to sell and feel really confident around that. And also to really own your expertise, which naturally will reduce the rate of people that are saying no, will reduce the rate of, people ghosting you, etc. You're going to get better results just from doing this as well, which in turn helps with those fears as well, because you're getting tangibly better results there. So the really big thing overall that I want you to take away from this is we're not trying to remove these sales fears. We're just trying to lessen the weight of them, essentially. We're just trying to make them feel less heavy, feel less big, just feel a little bit smaller of a fear and a bit of a concern for us and a worry. And we're actually just trying to make them feel a little bit easier because they're not just going to go away overnight. There's nothing I could tell you that's just going to disappear overnight. But actually, if we can make it feel less and just lessen it over time, eventually it will be gone from that. It's not going to be something for us anymore. So take the things which you've spoken about for your specific sales fear that you're noticing coming up and apply those and just see how that goes. And again, lean into the action piece. That is one of the best things I could possibly tell you is lean into the action. The more action you're taking, the easier it's just going to feel as you're going through this process. And the less you're going to notice this popping up, because if you're taking a lot of action, it's kind of hard to be in that place of leaning into these fears because you've got more sales calls around the corner. You've got more potential clients around the corner. So leaning into the action helps so much with that as well. I hope this has been a helpful episode. If you found this helpful, make sure you give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe as well so you do not miss the new episodes every single Monday. We'll continue with a few more spooky, fun ones for October as well. So if you've got anything you want to see in particular, make sure you comment below as well to let me know. I will take requests on any specific topics we want to make sure we're covering. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video next Monday.